Hello and welcome to my School Room Makeovers website. I am extremely excited about this unit. I think it's going to be a great project that you could do with your students, and I wanted to show you around my website for just a moment. So this is the introductory page. Just kind of gives you some images and just a little bit of information about the unit itself. But more importantly, we could go to the unit questions page, because these are the questions that I would like students to be thinking about while they do this unit. The essential questions are: how can space be defined through numbers and measurement? And how do we use geometric tools and technology to enhance our study of geometry? The unit questions deal specifically with redesigning a room so that students could use it to enjoy it for special purposes, and how we could represent a three-dimensional geometric plan in a two-dimensional way. So we'll be exploring that in the content. The content questions deal with collecting measurement, calculating square footage, and making a room design down to scale using scale factors. And we also incorporated some technology in this unit, and so we will answer the questions of how does technology allow us to more easily create original designs, allow us to collaborate and contribute to group projects, and just help us to organize and prioritize what we're doing. Just a brief overview of the standards. These are from the South Carolina Math Standards, but these are the geometry standards. One is to use direct measurement to determine the length of a segment. Then they need to also demonstrate an understanding of how geometry applies to a real-world context, which this project is great for. Use scale factors to solve problems involving scale drawings and models. Carry out a procedure to find the area of different objects, and then carry out a procedure to compute surface area. I also incorporated an English standard because I wanted these students to be able to write. So they will need to be able to create a technical piece that uses clear and precise language suitable for this purpose, which would be technical geometry terms. And I also used some technology standards. Students need to be able to create original works as a means of a personal or group expression, and they also need to be able to contribute to project teams to produce original works or solve problems using technology. So let's look at the introduction to the unit. As you can see here, the materials that I would use in my classroom are iPads, because each student in my school has an iPad, so I wanted to develop this project so that they could do it on their iPad. There's a great app called Grapheo Lite, which allows students to make graphic organizers. And so the first activity would be for them to make a KWL chart where they say what they know, what they want to learn, and then of course at the end of the unit they'll go back and write what they did learn in this graphic organizer. I also have a survey on SurveyMonkey that simply goes through and asks the students questions about what room in the school they would like to redesign. It also asks them what kind of skills they feel comfortable with as far as the geometry skills involved, and that's going to help me as a teacher put them in the right groups. And lastly, I have a video. If you click here, you can see the video on YouTube that kind of shows them what it would look like to take a two-dimensional design and make it three-dimensional. And you can view just a little bit of that. I think this video would be great to give them a feel for what it's going to look like when they're finished. This actual video is not created with the app that we're going to use, but it does look very similar to the app. You can see how you can move around the room in a three-dimensional way, and that's kind of the idea that I wanted the students to see. Alright, once you introduce that, the next session would be for the students to brainstorm After they have answered the survey questions, I would put them in groups and ask them to brainstorm about what room in the school they would like to redesign, and they'll be able to use that room for whatever they want if they could actually ever do this design. They could have it as an entertainment room, a student lounge, a kitchen area. So they'd be able to brainstorm in their groups. And I'd like them to use Edmodo, which is what our school uses for teacher websites and for group discussion. And so it's kind of like Facebook. They can have discussions with one another, and then I as a teacher can go back and see how they discussed, who contributed to the discussion, and it's a great way for me to assess their ability to collaborate and to use technology to collaborate. Then they would fill out a room design proposal sheet, and I've got that file attached here down at the bottom, and that will just be a way for them to fill out the document, let me know what it is that they are proposing to do in their group, and let me kind of help troubleshoot in case they're picking a classroom that just would not work, or if I saw any other problems. In the third session, we would actually practice measuring things in the classroom using a measuring tape, and after I would present that as a teacher and give them practice doing that with the measuring worksheet, once they could show me that they could correctly measure things with a measuring tape to the nearest inch, then I would let them go to the classroom in the building that they chose, and they would have to measure the dimensions of the room, each wall, each door, each window, and they would measure that and record it on their room measurement sheet. And I'll just click on that very briefly so you can see. They'll have to sketch the room and name the different walls and doors. That way I know which one they're referring to, wall 1, wall 2, door 1, door 2. And then down here they would name it and write down how many inches the height was. And then they have to convert that to feet and inches, because in later applications they'll need those dimensions. And then of course the width for each thing in inches, and then again in feet and inches. All right. I think they'll have a lot of fun with that, measuring the room going into a classroom. Maybe it's the band room, maybe it's another room, their locker room, or another room in the building that they choose, and they can go and measure it. Then comes the part where they want to actually start making the blueprint for their room on the app called Room Planner. This is an amazing app that I found. It is free. At least it is right now when I'm making this recording. It's a cool little app. You can see a picture here of the plan that I just did, a brief, small picture of a plan, but you can tell the design, what the measurements are. Here there's a window. I put another window here, and here there's a door. And when you change and hit the 3D button that's at the bottom of the screen, these are screen captures of my iPad, it changes it. As you can see, there's the window, the two windows on this side, and the door, and it actually shows you what it would look like three-dimensionally. This app is great because it lets students change the colors of the walls. You can change the floor, you can tile it, and you can add furniture in here. So that is what their final project will look like. They'll be able to design the whole room three-dimensionally on their app. This is called the Room Planner app. It's great. Another activity in this session is for them to use Simple Mind, which is another graphic organizer that I found for the iPad. And this app will allow them to collaborate to pick out what wall colors they would want, what flooring choice they want, the seating they would want in their room, any entertainment items, and they can add other categories to this, and they can move these around, and here you can see the instructions and everything. So that's a great graphic organizer as well. As you can see, technology is a really important part of this unit, and it just helps the students to be able to organize things and keep up with their work. All right, the next session would be for them to make a scale model of their room. This is an important skill for them to be able to change the inches to scale units and be able to make a poster with their two-dimensional scale model. They would have to pick a scale factor, and then their final scale model poster would look something like this. This is just an image I found, but they would have to be able to draw that on a poster so we could display it in the classroom. I give them a scale factor conversion sheet to use, and I'll just briefly click on that. We would practice scale factor conversions in the classroom first, and then I'd let them get in their groups and do it. So each wall, window, and door, they'd have to write down the width in inches only, which is why they needed that measurement, and then convert that to their scale units using the scale factor that they choose. And then of course those measurements would be used. Let's say 5 inches is equal to 1 unit. On their poster, they'd have to make sure that every 1 unit is 5 inches for their wall. And so that'll be a neat way that we could display their work in the classroom or in the hallway for other people to see, which would be great. The other thing that they will do in this session is to finalize their wall color, flooring, and furniture choices in their Room Planner app. All right, just to put all this together, in session 6, they would actually calculate the square footage of each room. We would practice that in class, and then they would use a square footage sheet that I've included to calculate square footage. And they will also be asked to, as I said in the standards, write a description of their room using the prompts that I would give them. They'll be asked to do a number of things. They have to give the name and location of the room, the reason they selected the room, the type of room they want to design, the dimensions of the walls and floor, along with the square footage, which is where the technical part of this writing comes in, their color choices, types of furniture, and this is important. Lastly, they would show how this project helped them understand the importance of geometry in a real-world setting. And that'll be a really interesting thing for me to see how they can write that. I would definitely let them submit their rough draft, give them some feedback on it, and then their final draft they would include in their final portfolio. And lastly, the most fun part I think is going to be when the students get to actually show their room design in 3D, present it to the class as a group. Each person in the group would have to participate in part of that. They'll take a unit quiz that would just help me to understand if individually they did get the skills that they needed to get out of this project. They'll complete their KWL chart, and then they'll submit their portfolio according to the student unit portfolio checklist and the rubric that I have here of how I would grade it. I encourage you to check that out if you're interested in doing this project. There are a few other things I wanted to show you. Right here on page 3, you can see my assessment plan. This tells you ways that I would assess the students before the unit using the KWL chart, surveys, Edmodo discussions. During the unit, these are all the different things. It's kind of a summary of what I've already told you of ways that the teacher would assess as they are working on their project. And then of course at the end, you would grade the final project and they would complete the unit quiz. There are some ways that you could differentiate for instruction, and those are included here on page 5, especially for students whom English is a second language. And ultimately, I used a lot of technology in designing this unit because of all the neat apps I was able to find on the iPad, and I learned a great deal. I just encourage you to try this project, and I thank you for watching my screencast. Thank you. Bye-bye.